We are in conversation with Mr. Dushan Soza, the governor of Rotary here in Sri Lanka and Maldives. He's also the former cricket captain of the Sri Lankan youth cricket team. He's also the former CEO of WNS, Sri Lanka's premier BPO organization, BPO company. Mr. Dushan, it's a great pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine too.
Before we get into the entire context of what we will be discussing throughout the day, could you take us through the exact, because you are holding a very pivotal role in an organization which is potentially the biggest service organization in the entire world. Could you take us through the exact mandate and the kind of commitment Rotary has been doing over the years and the kind of service they're doing right now?
So Rotary is headquartered out of Evanston in Chicago, and globally it comprises of 520 odd districts all over the world, 120 odd countries. Around 1.2 million Rotarians, so it's a huge organization, and it's typically run like a corporate where the directions are given from the headquarters for everyone to follow and be on the same page. And in order to do that, there is a set of values that have been created within Rotary and a vision statement for all Rotarians to follow. And to be more specific, there are 6 focus areas that have been named, and Rotary clubs all over the world focus on those 6 focus areas, and there's funding that is available from Rotary for such projects that are identified with a proper need analysis on the back of it that you can then carry out. So already in Sri Lanka we have carried out perhaps around 600 million rupees worth of projects that benefits the community directly.
Ms. Soza, could you take us through one of the biggest initiatives that the world faced was the issue with polio, and it wasn't any organization that took it up, it was Rotary and the UN to be particular. How did that happen? Could you take us through how the events?
Yeah, so years back when polio was very much a dreaded disease with over 350,000, 400,000 cases worldwide being reported affecting children, mainly children of the world. Rotary thought at that point of time it's perhaps a good project to look at. It was what they call a big, hairy, audacious goal to tackle polio around the world. Very complex task. They got onto it along with the World Health Organization and funded the immunization required for children, and that was rolled across the world along with the WHO as well as the Rotary clubs that are present in different parts of the world. Right now as we speak, we have what they call the endemic countries and the non-endemic countries. So there are 10 countries right now classified as endemic countries, which are possibility for polio to come up. And most of the countries are African countries like Congo, Mozambique, Nigeria, and so on, and Afghanistan and Pakistan. Those are the endemic countries, and Indonesia, 10 of them. And the non-endemic countries, the rest of the world. So basically, as we speak, the cases reported in non-endemic countries is 0. So you could say that polio has been wiped out from almost the entire part of the world, other than those 10 countries. And in those 10 countries, as of last week, 24 cases have been reported from Afghanistan and Pakistan, 7 from Afghanistan, 24 from Pakistan. So even the classified countries as endemic, the rest of the 8 countries, there have been 0 wild polio cases being reported there. So we're on track to basically eradicate polio from the surface of the earth. That's the stated goal of Rotary.
Could you make a subtle comment about how the work with governments is facilitated through Rotary? As in, this is not an easy task to do, and then there are a lot of, let's say, complications as you move into a lot of different boundaries, even within our country as well. How is the communication with governments?
So it is it's not the easiest task to deal with all the different government authorities, but on the polio subject, on the subject of polio, the Ministry of Health tied up, and there is a great preventive health mechanism in Sri Lanka. Some say it's one of the best in the world, and I've seen it personally because when we launched our own polio campaign in the country, I was in charge of the Anamadu area, and I saw how the government authorities and the government machinery worked in that area. So I could endorse the fact that it's a very efficient preventive health mechanism that we have in our country. So once you get through those initial the MOUs and the other logistics, when we actually hit the field, it's been a very smooth operation between the government and the Rotarians across the country.
All right. One thing that we should shed light on was how you managed to broker a deal with the LTTE during the 1993 period, and it was not for any political reason, but rather strictly for the betterment of the citizens and basically the immunization of children in the northeastern areas. Could you take us through how these events are? Because a lot of people don't know how this happened, and most people wouldn't even know that Rotary was involved in this.
So, in order to eradicate polio from the country, every single child had to be immunized, and that was not possible if there was no access to the north and the east. So, Rotary brokered a peace pact between the LTT and the government, which worked because at that time Ms. Prabhakaran was on record saying that his fight was with the government and not with the children of the country. So they agreed to a truce for 2 days for the medical officials to go to those areas and immunize the children of the north and the east. So that really worked for us because at the turn of the century, 1999 year 2000, Sri Lanka was declared polio free after a series of such immunizations that took place year after year.
All right. Something we would like to shed light on is this Human Heart Valve Bank, which was funded and then handed over to relevant authorities through Rotary. Could you take us through how the events unraveled there?
Yeah, so currently there are about 3,000 children who are born who are stated to be who would not see their first birthday because the mortality rates are such that most of the children who die within that period, the first year, die without receiving their first birthday, and the cause for that has been stated as due to congenital disease of the heart congenital disease, which leads to pneumonia and other diseases. So the response to that was to do some heart surgery by replacing some of the valves that are there in these children, and for that purpose a human heart valve bank was set up, which are extreme cold temperatures, minus 180 degrees or something. And right now the health authorities are testing the valves they have got, because these valves have to be cleared of any other diseases that are both like hepatitis and so on and so forth, and then clear them and then store them for the use. So we believe that over time we would be able to save around 60 to 70% of that number of children within that first year alone. So I think it's a great project. It's the first time such an initiative has been launched in this country, and all the training for the doctors and the nurses and so on of that whole thing is right now underway.
Given that Rotary does involve themselves in something more contemporary every year, something that they can get into, something that the country needs, and sometimes authorities don't really have, let's say, relevant equipment or relevant manpower to do so. What's the next project for Rotary? Where are we going next?
Yeah, so when we analyzed, obviously right now one of the big issues in the country is with the dengue epidemic that we all know of. If you talk to anybody, they've had somebody in their families, children, family, friends, whoever who's had an attack of dengue on them. So it was a very, very critical area that we had to look at and try and see what we could do with the idea of eliminating dengue from the country, because people have tried cleaning their gardens, various other techniques, but dengue still survives. So we came up with a concept of designing a mosquito trap, where we could trap the mosquito into laying the egg in that trap and then destroy the larvae with a kerosene mixture that is inside this trap. So with that, it's being field tested right now in Rampas with over 1,000 odd units being installed, and we see a very low incident rate of dengue. But having said that, this whole year the entire dengue incident rates have fallen, so we can't really make a statement because the country's dengue rates have come down. So we're waiting for the current monsoonal season, and post the monsoons we'll take the results of the dengue case in that area, and we'll be able to come up with a very strong statement on whether this trap is working or not.
Did you have to face any technical problems or any objections, let's say, from authorities or from any other third party when implementing this pilot project within the country?
Yeah, there were no objections per se, but there was a complexity in getting all the different agencies onto the same table. So we have had the dengue epidemiology unit, we have the PHIs and the municipal councils of the areas. Then we have the Ministry of Health involved in this. So it was a case of getting everybody onto the same table and signing the various memorandum of understandings with the different divisions, and then launching it through the municipality, because we really wanted people on the ground, which means that we need to have the environmental police going and looking at that place, plus the PHIs who would go and take the results out of these out of the traps, from the traps, and also do the education to the people in that area that such a unit has been installed, and this is the purpose of this unit.
As a case study in comparison to polio and the efforts that were made with polio, is the aspiration of eradicating dengue a possibility in this country? Is that something we can aspire to see?
Yeah, polio has actually encouraged us to believe that nothing is impossible. And in the case of the Rotary structure itself, we have a reach all the way from the age of 12. We have a group of we have a program called the Interact program, which is in the schools, and the next stage is the Rotaractors from the age of 22 to 30, and the Rotarians. So you could say that we have one organization that's got a reach from the age of 12 all the way up, and therefore, given the resources that we have and the structure we have, we should be able to take on any project that we put our minds to it. And so we are thinking about it in a very positive manner, and we do hope that we will be able to end up with some positive results.
Before I move into my next questions, being in the subject of dengue as well, what do you think about the functionality of municipalities within this country and like the people that are working on the ground? Do you think they have the relevant resources to go forward? Is there something that should be funneled to these areas, which even the Rotary Club could facilitate?
So I wouldn't know about the number of resources available to tackle every single area of the country in a very effective manner. But the public health inspectors and that whole structure seems to be working very well. Wherever they are operating in, they know the people on the ground, and that relationship is very important to carry out any program that the country wishes or from the municipality. The interest from the municipality was very high on this project, including the mayor's her worship Rosie Senayaka. She in fact helped us launch the whole program with a press conference and so on. So there is belief all around that here's something that we could all work on and await the results. And even the WHO has been informed of this program. So I believe everybody is waiting to see the results of this project. It's going to be quite historic in that sense, because it's not only for dengue, it's for any mosquito-borne disease like malaria and other diseases as well, if it works.
Given that, as I said before, the Rotary Club, and as you mentioned, as the governor also, with regards to the kind of project that they're taking up, they're not small projects, they're pretty large. So it shows that that passion and that effort is possible and that potential is present within the Rotarian Club. And given this context of how there is an increasing number of carcinogenic agents in the world in general, not even within this country, is cancer a subject that the Rotarian Club, or as an organization, you are willing to embark on?
Yeah. So that's a stated program that we have in Rotary. A number of projects have been carried out in that field of cancer. We've set up a cancer early detection center in Narayanpeta, and already they have served around 70,000 people from across the country absolutely free of charge. And that's the first screening they do, and if there's anything positive, they are then referred to the next levels. So again, the whole program is run with the Ministry of Health. It's the health officials who are running the center. The entire center is funded by Rotary, all the equipment and everything else. And right now we are seeing even males coming in there. So basically it was originally all females coming for breast cancer and various other initial testing programs. Now it has even expanded to covering males for oral cancer and so on. And the numbers are now increasing, so we are looking at, again, on a public-private partnership, setting up a building and taking a couple of floors of that and expanding this whole facility of the early detection center. Another big project that we have just undertaken, again on a MOU with the Ministry of Health, is to tackle the cervical cancer problem in the country. where the cervical cancer comes up in females from the age of 35 onwards, and there is a way of immunizing them when they are young, so that you can eradicate this. So this project is really a 30-year-old project, 30 years project, so that because the results of what you do now can only be seen 30 years later. So the government has launched on a massive campaign to do this immunization. Rotary has tied up with the government to do the communication across all stakeholders, and also bring in all the latest equipment. There's a piece of equipment called the HPV DNA or something like that, which replaces the current methodology of doing the pap smear, which is the way of testing cervical cancer in women. So this replaces the old system, and we believe with sophisticated equipment of that nature, on the one side, at the one end, they can do the testing much faster and take in more people, and on the other side, with the immunization taking place, we believe over a period of time this will be a very effective project. And I believe the stated goal of the government is to get Sri Lanka classified as the first country in the world to be rid of cervical cancer.
That's an aspiration that we're willing to see. Taking you to a more contemporary subject, the April 21 attacks that happened in the country. I don't need to give any contextualization to this. What exactly is the position of Rotary with regards to this attack?
Yeah, so Rotary is well geared to handle disasters of any nature, predominantly disasters based on natural calamities like floods and so on. So this was something very new that we hit upon once we had set up this, what we call the Disaster Management Center of Rotary. We have a lead Rotary club that is running this whole center with a single point of contact and a flow of instructions and structure set up to handle any disaster as it hits a country. So on the April 21st, again, post that event, when it was first possible, we were the first on the ground, visiting the locations, talking to the authorities to see how Rotary can get involved. Set up a program for the next 1 year of being of assistance to these victims and their families. So initially we have catered to all the immediate needs that have come up, including providing push bikes to people in the north, in Batiklo, who had their bikes destroyed, parked in the car park, in the park outside, and get them mobilized immediately. Plus we have a medical bus that is now parked in and around those areas, providing care for hearing aids and so many other different things. On top of it, the Rotarians of the area, because we have Rotary clubs all over the place, so there's club in Migambo, there are clubs in Batiklo, 2 clubs in Batiklo and so on. They have tied up with the pharmacies in order to get medication at a highly discounted rate for these victims. So they're creating those databases, they're getting involved right at it, and looking at the post-event activity, in addition to immediately providing some solace. So there's a whole list of items that we are lined up that we intend providing the victims. And one other project that we are right now planning and hoping to launch soon, no sooner we raise the funds, is to set up a playground called the Easter Sunday Memorial Playground for children. And we have found an area where there are a lot of kids who are victims of this, largely where the parents are no more and so on, that we will provide this playground for them, and get their minds trained back again into normal day-to-day life.
Could you give us some insight as to a lot of projects are being undertaken as of now? So, as you said, there is a structure, and a structure is very much essential if we are to go ahead with something like this. What about education? Is education also another industry or another area, a sector that...
Very important area, and as I told you at the beginning, we have 6 focus areas that Rotary is working on, and one of them is the child and literacy programs, it's basically education and so on. So we have the Interact clubs represented in so many schools across the country. So they handle at school level whatever little projects they could do. But overall, at a macro level, one of the projects that we are very proud of that we have launched is English spelling competition, with the idea of getting schools to, or English teachers to teach English spelling. Because it was our belief that if your English spelling is good, naturally you improve your standard of English. And with that being the case, I believe this year our project that was launched, we had about 200,000 children taking part in this program across the country, north to east, south to west, and we are now down to the last 25 of that whole program to see who the winners are. So that's a huge project we have undertaken. Next year we want to make it bigger, again getting funding from Rotary to we have a program called the Global Grants, and we have applied for this grant, which we are hoping will be successful, and those monies will be used to run this project across the country. And it's the first online program that we have seen being run. It's done on tabs, and the last few rounds are all online, so the results come almost immediately.
Okay. As a final question, since you did mention to us, even though most organizations don't have a hierarchy per se, they do have a structure, and Rotary very much capitalizes on this structure. A fundamental issue that even government agencies have is the capacity for them to be accountable over what happens, to monitor exactly whether the people on the ground work. What is the mechanism Rotary uses, and how is it successful, and can it be implemented in another case?
Of course, so we have a very strong, although we are a volunteer organization, we have a very strong performance framework that guides all of us to deliver what we undertake. And at the district level, we have set up KPIs for all the clubs, saying this is what we want to achieve, and here are your citations based on the goals that have been set up. And the whole reporting structure has been automated, which is very important, because you can carry out any program you want, but you need to have the management information, or in the business world you call it business intelligence. So we have that intelligence coming back through to us, because every club reports on a monthly basis what they do, again even in the focus area. So I could tell you how many man hours have been spent on volunteer work. And when you analyze all that, one starting fact that came out was that Rotarians spend about around 10% of their time, of their productive time, engaged in volunteer service. So that's a very significant data point that we have got, because by tweaking that to go up or down, we can make a significant difference in the way Rotary looks at doing their programs in the country.
As a final question, given that you being the governor, head of this hierarchy in two countries as well, what's the kind of workload you have to go through, and how confident are you with regards to whatever plans that have been implemented, whatever you're carrying on, whatever you're planning on innovating in the future? How confident are you of the activity of Rotary within our country, as a final question?
So I think it's a huge workload. Not everyone can, whilst many people would aspire to lead such organizations, once you actually get into it, you find that there's a lot of things happening everywhere. It's not only in our own countries. We handle Sri Lanka and Maldives at zonal level and at global level. You need to be connected and communicating almost on a daily basis with various people. There are global grants on one side. There are the governor's visits. Governor is expected to visit every single club at least once and have an official evaluation process in those clubs to see how they. So 70 clubs is a lot of work to do, and I have calculated this measured it to be around 14,000 kilometers that I need to travel across the country. So it's a lot of work. It's not an easy task, but it would be made easy because of the motivation, the self-motivation of the Rotarians, which makes it easy to govern. So they have belief in themselves, and the message that we want to give the public is that that there's a Rotary club near you. If anything you want, just go to the Rotary club, they'll take care of it. And I must admit, Rotarians have not done a good job in publicizing most of the work that we do. I mean, it's programs like this that we can talk about it. And there is now launch of this public image that we want to create to give out the message to the public out there that there's a Rotary club near you.
I think that's the kind of self-motivation that is required in this country as well. We have been in conversation with Mr. Dushan. Thank you for speaking with us. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Pleasure being with you.